bá mi pè o kí lorúkọ rẹ̀ rédíò gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ àfíjú gbogbo èèyàn ló ń wo àfíjú lórí WhatsApp Instagram Facebook lórí X lórí YouTube lórí TikTok kí lorúkọ rẹ̀ ẹ bá mi pè o rédíò gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ àfíjú gbogbo èèyàn ló ń wo àfíjú gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ àfíjú gbogbo èèyàn ló ń wo àfíjú rédíò àfíjú rédíò àfíjú rédíò àfíjú.
Wherever you're listening or watching Radio Afiju, the time is 3 p.m.
Stay informed with news on Radio Afiju.
First, a look at the highlights. Reps demand reversal of telco's tariff hike as new pricing begins. Wife of detained Ugandan opposition figure Besigye says her husband is on hunger strike. Trump trade advisors finalized reciprocal U.S. tariffs as fears mount. Good afternoon and welcome to the World News on Radio Afiju. My name is Pearl Durotoye. The news in detail. The House of Representatives has directed the telecom regulator and the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy to suspend the 50% tariff increase, arguing that Nigerians cannot afford higher telecom costs amid rising inflation and the removal of fuel subsidies. This directive comes as Nigerian telecommunications operators have started implementing the long-awaited tariff hike following regulatory approval from the Nigerian Communications Commission as lawmakers move to halt the rollout, citing economic hardship. The tariff hike, which had been cleared by the NCC, was scheduled to take effect nationwide starting Monday, while MTN, the country's largest telecommunications provider, has already started implementing the revised rates as of Tuesday. Other key players, Glo, Airtel and Nine Mobile, had yet to release their new pricing structure. The Senate Committee on Public Accounts is demanding that the Office of the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, explains what happened to 3,907 firearms reported to be missing within the Nigerian police force by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. The IGP had appeared before the Senate Committee over the missing firearms on Tuesday, but excused himself and left Assistant Inspector General of Police Abdul Suleiman to entertain questions from the senators. The committee had insisted that the AIG disclose the whereabouts of the missing firearms, arguing that the issue is of national importance. In response, the AIG pleaded for discretion, stating that discussions on police firepower should not be made public. However, the majority of lawmakers insisted on public accountability. Some senators sided with the chairman, disagreeing with calls for a closed-door session. The Committee on Public Accounts declared dissatisfaction with the police explanations, again summoning the IGP to appear before the committee on Monday. An Osun-based social affairs analyst, Wole Oladapo, has berated the Osun State Independent Electoral Commission, OSIEC, under the leadership of Ashim Abioye antics in the ongoing political spat between All Progressives Congress and People's Democratic Party ahead of the local government poll scheduled to hold on 22nd of February 2025, saying OSIEC is acting as PDP government's agent. An appeal court sitting in Akure on Monday reinstated the elected local government chairman and councillors sacked by Governor Ademola Adeleke, ordering the immediate resumption back to the office. Meanwhile, OSIEC, through its chairman, has filed an appeal against the appeal court's judgment, saying that there is no court order returning any elected official into office, while stressing that local government election will be held in the state. While speaking on Radio Afinju's Yoruba Current Affairs program, Bagede Oro, Oladapo maintained that OSIEC as an electoral body should be non-aligned in active partisanship, but the electoral body has subjected itself to an object of ridicule as a result of how the body is handling political power tussle in the state. Oladapo further hinted that if not properly managed, it could lead to unrest in the state at large and also affect the newly agreed local government autonomy, which seeks to make life better for people at the grassroots. Officials from Algeria, Nigeria, and Niger have signed new agreements to accelerate the development of the long-delayed Trans-Saharan Gas Pipeline, TSGP. The 4,128-kilometer pipeline, first announced in 2009, aims to transport billions of cubic meters of natural gas from Nigeria through Niger to Nigeria. From there, the gas could be delivered to Europe via the Transmed pipeline to Italy or exported as liquefied natural gas. The latest contracts include an updated feasibility study and non-disclosure agreements between the state energy firms of the three nations. Algerian Energy Minister Mohamed Arkab emphasized that the feasibility update will outline cost-effective strategies to accelerate the project. Away from Nigeria, Winnie Byanyima says her husband, Kizza Besigye, a prominent opposition figure in Uganda who is on trial in a military tribunal, has begun a hunger strike 2 weeks after the country's top court banned courts-martial from trying civilians. President Yoweri Museveni said his government would continue to prosecute civilians in military courts despite the Supreme Court's ruling. Byanyima wrote on X late on Tuesday, saying Besigye is on hunger strike, detained illegally by a regime that fears its defiance more than it respects the law. Recall that Besigye, a long-time opponent of Museveni, was detained in neighboring Kenya in November in what a senior Kenyan foreign affairs official described as an abduction, and was subsequently brought home and charged with illegal possession of firearms and with treachery, which carries the death penalty. Meanwhile, Uganda's prison spokesperson, Frank Bain, denied the assertion regarding her husband, telling newsmen that Besigye is okay and not on hunger strike. In Asia, North Korean state media has denounced U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to take over Gaza and relocate Palestinians as bluster and accused Washington of robbery. A commentary carried by the state media said, without directly naming Trump, that the slim hopes of Palestinians for safety and peace are being crushed by the proposal. The commentaries aimed at Trump's shock announcement that U.S. intends to remove Gaza residents and transform the war-ravaged territory into what the president billed as a Riviera of the Middle East. North Korea, which often argues against Western views on international issues, has been outspoken about the situation in Gaza, blaming Israel for the bloodshed and calling the United States an accomplice. A military court in Uzbekistan has sentenced 10 defendants to lengthy prison terms for the attempted murder of the former presidential press secretary, Komil Alamijonov. The failed attack on Alamijonov's car in October last year sparked rumors of a power struggle in the country of 37 million people amid scant information from the authorities. The country's Supreme Court Press Service, in a statement today, named only 5 of the 10 defendants who received prison sentences of between 7 and 23 years. A senior security services officer and a top interior ministry official were among those sentenced. The statement said nothing about why Alamjonov was targeted or who was behind the plot. In Europe, Greece's parliament today has elected its former speaker, Constantine Tassoulis, as the country's president, approving the conservative government's nominee for the largely ceremonial role. The decision to nominate him has angered protesters who rallied outside parliament last month, seeking justice over a deadly 2023 train crash. They say that on Tassoulis' watch as parliamentary speaker, lawmakers failed to investigate any political responsibility over Greece's worst rail disaster. The 66-year-old lawyer has been a lawmaker since 2000 and has previously served as Greece's culture minister and deputy defense minister, won the backing of 160 lawmakers in Wednesday's vote in the 300-seat parliament. Tassoulis will be sworn in as head of state on March 13th. It will succeed Greece's first female president, Katerina Sakellaropoulou, whose 5-year term expires in March. Still in Europe, Germany's cabinet has decided in principle to deploy police forces for a European Union civilian mission to monitor the border crossing between Gaza and Egypt at Rafah. A government source told journalists earlier, adding that the exact timing as well as the size of Germany's contribution to secure the key entry and exit points for the Palestinian territory was yet to be decided. The European Union last month restarted a civilian mission with personnel from Spain, Italy and France to secure the crossing, which is also the main passage for humanitarian aid. Germany, which holds federal elections on February 23, has previously said some of its ministries had consulted on their role in the mission. In the Americas, Donald Trump's trade advisors today are finalizing plans for the reciprocal tariffs the U.S. president has vowed to impose on every country that charges duties on U.S. imports, ratcheting up fears of a widening global trade war. Trump stunned markets with his decision on Monday to impose tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports beginning March 12th. The plans drew condemnation from Mexico, Canada, and the European Union, while Japan and Australia said they were seeking exemptions from the duties. Last week, Trump slapped an additional 10% tariff on Chinese goods, effective February 4th, with Chinese countermeasures taking effect this week. Trump said he would announce reciprocal tariffs over the next 2 days on all countries that impose duties on U.S. goods and said he was also looking at separate tariffs on cars, semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. President Donald Trump's advisor, Elon Musk, made a rare public appearance at the White House to defend the swift and extensive cuts he's pushing across the federal government amid concerns that he's amassing power with little transparency or accountability. Trump also signed an executive order expanding Musk's power to continue downsizing the federal workforce, by which a DOJ representative will need to approve almost all new hiring. Billionaire Musk stood next to Trump in the Oval Office at the White House with his 4-year-old son as the United States president praised his work in the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, DOJ. Concerns that the White House has been moving to limit independent oversight have grown after the Inspector General for the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, was fired a day after warning that it had become nearly impossible to monitor $8.2 billion in humanitarian funds after DOJ began dismantling the agency. Musk defended DOJ's work as common sense and not draconian or radical. He described the federal bureaucracy as an unelected fourth branch of government with more power than any elected representative. In the Middle East, Israel's military has called up reservists in preparation for a possible resumption of fighting in Gaza if Hamas fails to meet a Saturday deadline to release more Israeli hostages and a nearly month-old ceasefire breaks down. Under the ceasefire deal in force since January 19th, the Palestinian militant group agreed to free 3 more hostages on Saturday. Recall it said this week it was suspending the handover because of what it said were Israeli violations of the terms. In response, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he had ordered the military to gather forces in and around Gaza, and the military announced shortly afterwards that it was deploying additional forces to Israel's south, including mobilizing reservists. The standoff threatens to reignite a conflict that has devastated the Gaza Strip, internally displaced most of its people, and caused shortages of food, running water and shelter, and pushed the Middle East to the brink of a wider regional war. Now talking sports, Manchester United are planning to make another round of redundancies at the club, with around 100 staff set to lose their jobs. Jim Ratcliffe has been looking into the finances at United since he became a minority shareholder in February last year. The club announced in May last year that around 250 members of staff were to be made redundant as Ratcliffe and fellow INEOS executives launched a series of cost-cutting measures. The club has lost £300 million in the past 3 years. Ratcliffe has invested around £250 million in the club, and they are exploring how they can reduce costs and looking at new ways to generate revenue. Before we go, here again are the highlights. The House of Representatives has directed the telecom regulator and the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy to suspend the 50% tariff increase, arguing that Nigerians cannot afford higher telecom costs amid rising inflation and the removal of fuel subsidies. Elsewhere, Winnie Byanyima said her husband, Kizza Besigye, a prominent opposition figure in Uganda who is on trial in a military tribunal, has begun a hunger strike. The statement Uganda's prison spokesperson Frank Bain denied. In the Americas, Donald Trump's trade advisors today are finalizing plans for the reciprocal tariffs the U.S. president has vowed to impose on every country that charges duties on U.S. imports. ratcheting up fears of a widening global trade war. That was world news on Radio Afinju. To view our channel, please follow us on Facebook, X and YouTube at Radio Afinju. The news was edited by Bukola Karim. My name is Pearl Durotoye. Thanks for listening. Good afternoon.